What is the Messianic Secret, and how does it relate to today's gospel about the healing of the leper? Leprosy at the time of Christ was not precisely what the medical definition of leprosy is, which is Hansen's disease, but included all other skin diseases, many of them temporary. These diseases were severe, though, because they assumed they were contagious. They assumed that the one affected was spiritually unclean. The person afflicted would be unfit to participate in their community or worship. Today's first reading from Leviticus is the third book of the Bible, and it's mostly concerned with Hebrew laws of purity, ritual purity. This is why the person with leprosy would have to ring a bell and cry out, "Unclean, unclean," to warn others to keep their distance. And there were rules set up for quarantine. The one afflicted would report to a priest who was minister of the Torah. He would diagnose the illness and decide on the length of the quarantine. A leper's second visit would be to the priest again to require to receive a clean bill of health to allow that person to re-enter society and to participate in temple worship. Essentially, purity was equated with wholeness. Today's gospel reading from Mark, a man disobeys the leprosy quarantine and isolation. He's willing to risk the horror and disgust that he might see on the faces of the crowd. He kneels in front of Christ in an act of supplication and reverence and an act of true humility. And he pleads, "If you wish, you can make me clean." This is an act of complete trust. This is certainly an act of complete faith. When Jesus is then moved with pity, stretches out his hand and touches him, "I do will it, be made clean." Jesus' cleanliness, his holiness, it's invincible. No defilement can contaminate him or make him unclean. Those who approach in faith, like the man with leprosy, have their cleanliness removed and they're restored to wholeness. What incredible, overwhelming joy the leper must have felt to be returned to the community. I'd probably share this with everybody I knew and everybody who was willing to listen of the joy. Wouldn't you want to spread the word? Isn't that why Christ was here, to spread the living gospel of the kingdom of God? Why does God tell the man to go and show yourself to the priest? This is probably one of the most striking and reoccurring themes in Mark's gospel, and that's the Messianic secret. 5 times he repeatedly insists that his work not be publicized. 4 times he forbids people and demons from revealing his true identity. But why? Because Jesus' messianic identity is a more profound mystery than any of his disciples can yet understand, and it must gradually be unveiled. The popular view of the Messiah was he'd be a great political and military leader, that he'd liberate Israel from Roman rule, and he'd usher in a new world of peace and prosperity. But Jesus brings a much greater liberation, a liberation from sin, liberation from Satan, and from death. His mission is inseparably linked to laying down of his life on the cross. Till the mystery was revealed, reports of his miracles would have created a distorted messianic enthusiasm. In the first part of today's reading, the man with leprosy is isolated. He lives outside of town. At the end of the gospel, the roles are reversed. Christ now has to live outside in deserted places. Christ remains an outsider, but welcomes people back to the harmony with God and themselves. As we continue to practice social distancing because of COVID, maybe we can identify with the man in today's gospel that is surely isolated from society, groups, community, and maybe his friends. Every Christian has to experience the gradual revelation of the Messianic secret. Do you understand Christ's suffering, death, and resurrection? Salvation that is only understood in the light of the cross. To purify our limited human ideas of what God's kingdom should be, being led to the reality that is far greater. We can freely proclaim and spread the gospel, helping others and ourselves to move from isolation to acceptance.